I'm Morrie Backun, and I'm here to talk about one of the favorite topics of all woodwind repairmen, cracks. Someone smarter than me once said, there's really only two kinds of instruments that are made of wood. Those which have cracked and those which will crack. Well, I think that may be going just a little too far. Cracks are a common occurrence. They basically happen, in the simplest common sense, by the difference that is caused by inner and outer temperature and moisture. Today's discussion is going to be completely non-denominational. It doesn't matter what make of instrument you play. It's the wood itself, even when well seasoned, which goes through various changes. That's one of the reasons that when you play a wooden instrument, as you play with the warmth inside, the pitch goes sharper, or as it cools down, the pitch goes lower. The wood is actually moving. The degree of movement to some significant amount will determine whether or not the instrument will crack. The other thing which is difficult to predict for any maker or any player is that wood has natural strengths and natural weaknesses. It has a grain structure. Sometimes there are small bug holes. In other cases, there is simply an inclusion, which means something other than the primary wood. And as those go through the change, you will find that the wood itself may be subject to cracks. And cracks can be anything from a very, very minor, virtually cosmetic check, all the way through what would be considered a catastrophic crack, where an instrument can literally split in two or more pieces. So I have some examples. And again, this is completely non-denominational, so it just so happens these are the samples which I have available. When we look at instruments, you'll notice that the inside and the outside, in other words, the bore to the outer surface, is a relatively small area. And all of the pressure is on that area. So as we find over time, this is an instrument that had cracked and someone had glued, unfortunately not very well. And then the same through a very common area, which is through the top trill tone holes. In this case, it requires a slightly different technique, and we're going to talk about that a little bit as we go on. Some areas are thinner than others. For example, that's the inner profile of a bell. And you'll see here that it's thicker at the top, thicker at the bottom, quite thin in the middle. So if these crack, the repair options may be different than they would be on the other parts. But we're going to get into that as we go along a little bit. I thought I'd show you wood in the raw state. So this is a piece of wood that was square that we simply have turned round. And you'll see if you look that in this case, this one has been rejected, but there's a hole or a bug inclusion here, and there's a natural hole here. These happen as the wood grows, sometimes because of pests. They can be mites of some type or wood beetles, different kinds of bugs. Or it can simply be that there was a weakness in the plant or it was attacked by something. So in many cases, instruments have had these filled as they're made. Sometimes the fills come loose and then a crack can either start from there or it's a hole that's dealt with. But we're going to get into that in the next chapter. But for now, if your instrument's cracked or if you're dealing with an instrument that's cracked, take a breath, calm down. We're going to show you how to fix it. Thanks.